You have exactly 1 month. I understand.
I found out I was being kicked out of my own home on my 20th birthday, and the only reason I didn't panic was because I had seen that envelope before. The cake was already on the table when I walked in. White frosting, 20 thin candles, slightly uneven, like whoever placed them didn't really care how it looked. Rebecca stood by the kitchen counter, arms folded, watching me the way you look at someone who's about to leave, not someone you're celebrating. "Go ahead," she said, nodding toward the cake. "Make a wish." I remember thinking how quiet the house felt. Too quiet. No music, no decorations. Just the soft hum of the refrigerator and the faint ticking of the clock above the stove. I didn't move right away. Something about the way she was standing there, already composed, already finished with whatever this was, made it clear. This wasn't a birthday, this was a transition. If you've ever had a moment where something felt off before it actually happened, where your body understood before your mind caught up, then you already know exactly what I felt standing in that kitchen. And if stories like this hit close to home, take a second to like the video and subscribe, because what happened next, I promise you, it didn't end the way she expected. I stepped closer to the table, staring at the candles. 20 years. That was what my dad used to say mattered. "At 20, you'll be set," he told me once, his voice low, like it was something meant only for me. I didn't understand it back then. I do now. "Aren't you going to blow them out?" Rebecca asked, her tone tightening just slightly. I picked up the knife instead, the metal cold against my fingers, and cut straight through the center of the cake without making a wish. She watched me do it, didn't say anything, just reached behind her and slid a manila envelope across the counter. It stopped halfway between us. Clean, flat, final. "Happy birthday, Emily," she said. "You'll need to be out by the end of the week." I looked down at the envelope. My name was printed across the front in sharp black ink. Not handwritten, not personal, official. I didn't argue. I didn't ask why. I didn't even look at her. Because in that exact moment, something clicked into place. The envelope in front of me wasn't the only one. I had seen another one before. Years ago. Tucked inside a drawer my father told me never to open. I said nothing. I just picked it up. And I understood. I did not open it right away. That was the part she did not expect. Most people would have ripped it open, argued, demanded an explanation. But I had already learned how Rebecca worked. She liked reactions. She liked control. And this, whatever was inside that envelope, was meant to push me into one. So I set it down on the table next to the cake, right between the clean slice I had made and the untouched half still holding the candles. "You are not going to read it?" she asked. Her voice almost curious now, like she was adjusting to a script that was not going the way she planned. I shook my head slightly. "I will read it later." I could feel her watching me, trying to measure what that meant. I picked up a fork and took a small bite of the cake. It tasted dry, like it had been sitting out too long. "End of the week," she repeated, sharper this time. "That gives you 5 days. I think that is more than fair." I nodded once. Okay, that was it. No argument? No questions, just one word, okay? The kind of word that sounds like agreement but is really just acknowledgement. I carried my plate upstairs past the hallway where my dad used to keep his office door half open, past the picture frames that had slowly changed over the years until I was barely in them at all. My room was the same as I had left it that morning. Small, clean, temporary. I closed the door behind me and sat on the edge of the bed, the fork still in my hand. For a second, everything felt quiet again. Then I reached under the mattress and pulled out the small wooden box I had not touched in years. It was not locked. It never had been. Inside, under a stack of old birthday cards and a faded photograph of me and my dad at the beach, was the envelope he had given me when I was 16, thicker than the one downstairs. He had handed it to me without explanation, just a look that said, "This mattered. Keep it somewhere safe," he told me. "Do not let anyone else find it." I had asked him what it was. He smiled, but not fully. Something for later. I did not understand it then. I think part of me did not want to. I slid it out now, running my fingers along the edge. My name was written on the front in his handwriting. Not printed, not formal, personal. I placed it next to me on the bed and stared at both envelopes in my mind. One from him, one from her, two versions of my future sitting in the same house. I took a breath. Then I reached for his first. I did not rush. That was the difference between who I used to be and who I had become in that house. When I was younger, I would have torn it open the second my father left the room, desperate to understand, desperate to feel chosen. But sitting there now, I understood something else entirely. Timing mattered, control mattered, and whatever was inside this envelope had been waiting for this exact moment. I slid my finger carefully under the flap and opened it without tearing the paper. Inside was a single folded document and a smaller sealed packet. The paper felt heavier than normal, like it carried more than just words. I unfolded it slowly. At the top, in clean, formal print, was a name I did not recognize at first. A law firm. Beneath it a date from 4 years ago, the year my father passed. My eyes moved down the page line by line, my breathing steady even as something deep inside me began to shift. Trust agreement. Beneficiary Emily Carter. I stopped there. Just for a second. Not because I did not understand the words, but because I did. Completely. I kept reading. The language was precise, almost clinical. Assets held in trust, controlled disbursement, restricted access. And then the line that changed everything. Full control transferred upon the beneficiary reaching the age of 20. 20. I looked up instinctively, like someone might be standing there to confirm it, but the room was empty, quiet, still, downstairs. I could faintly hear Rebecca moving through the kitchen, the sound of a cabinet closing, the soft rhythm of someone who believed the situation was already decided. I looked back at the document. My name appeared again, not as an afterthought, not as a condition, as the center of it. It was mine, not something I had to ask for. Not something I had to earn. Mine. I reached for the smaller packet next. This one was sealed differently with a thin strip of adhesive that had never been touched. I hesitated for the first time, not out of fear but out of recognition. This was the part he had not explained. I opened it carefully. Inside was a short letter, handwritten. His handwriting. I knew it immediately. The slight slant, the way he pressed harder on certain letters, like he was anchoring them to the page. Emily, if you are reading this, then it means two things. First, you are 20. And second, I was right. I felt something tighten in my chest, but I did not let it show. I kept reading. I have set this up so that no one can take what belongs to you, not through pressure, not through guilt, not through paperwork. You will not need to fight for it. It will already be yours. I paused there. Just one moment, because suddenly everything made sense. The quiet conversations, the way he had watched Rebecca without ever confronting her directly, the way he had told me to wait. He had already seen it coming. He had already planned for this day. I folded the letter carefully and placed it back into the envelope. Downstairs, a door closed. Firm. Final. I stood up slowly, holding the document in my hand. She thought she had given me 5 days. She thought I was leaving with nothing. I looked at the paper again just to be sure. Then I nodded once. She was wrong. I did not go downstairs right away. That would have been too easy, too reactive, too predictable. Instead, I folded the document once more, placed it back into the envelope my father had given me, and set it carefully inside the wooden box. Then I stood there for a moment, looking around the room that had never really been mine. The walls were bare, except for a single frame that had not been updated in years. The furniture was functional, not personal. Even the closet held more empty space than anything else. It had always been temporary. I understood that now. Not because I did not belong there, but because someone else had already decided I never would. I picked up the second envelope from the desk, the one Rebecca had given me, and finally opened it. The paper inside was standard, clean, impersonal, a formal notice outlining terms, dates, expectations. Vacate the premises within 5 calendar days. Remove all personal belongings. No extensions, no discussion. It read like a transaction, not a conversation, like I was something being processed out of the system. I read it once, then again slower the second time. Not because I needed to understand it, but because I wanted to see how far she thought she could go. My name appeared again, but this time it looked different, smaller somehow, less significant. I folded it back along the crease and placed it on the desk. For a brief moment, I considered what she expected me to do next. Panic, call someone, pack everything in a rush, try to negotiate, apologize for something I had not done. That was the version of me she had been building toward for years. Quiet, compliant, replaceable. I walked to the window and looked out at the driveway. Her car was still there, parked slightly off-center like she had arrived in a hurry but settled quickly after. That was how she did everything. Assert first, justify later. I rested my hand lightly against the glass. Cool, solid, real. This house, the one she was trying to remove me from, had never actually been hers to control in the way she believed. And now for the first time I had proof of that. Not a feeling, not an assumption. Proof. I turned away from the window and reached for my phone. I scrolled through my contacts until I found the name listed at the top of the document. The law firm. The number was printed clearly, intentionally, not hidden. Not difficult to find, like it was meant to be used at exactly this moment. I stared at it for a second, then I pressed call. The line rang once, twice, a third time. Then someone answered calm and professional. I spoke my name, Emily Carter. There was a pause on the other end, not confusion, not hesitation. Recognition. Yes, the voice said steady and prepared. We have been expecting your call. I closed my eyes for just a second, letting that settle. Then I opened them again. Everything had already been set in motion long before tonight. I just had not realized it until now, and downstairs she still thought I was packing. The voice on the other end did not rush. That was the first thing I noticed. Emily Carter, he repeated, as if confirming something already written down, long before I picked up the phone. My name is Daniel Hayes. I am the attorney assigned to your file. Assigned. Not contacted, not discovered, assigned. I sat down slowly on the edge of the bed, the phone steady against my ear. You said you were expecting my call. There was a soft shuffle of paper on his end, not frantic, not searching. Prepared. Yes, he said calmly. Your father made specific arrangements for us to reach out once you turned 20, but only if you initiated contact first. I did not speak for a second. That detail mattered more than anything else he had said so far. He did not want them to come to me. He wanted me to choose. I have the documents, I said. I read the agreement. Good, he replied. Then you understand that as of today, you have full legal authority over the trust and any assets associated with it. Authority. Not access, not permission. Authority. Downstairs, I could hear Rebecca moving again, the faint sound of drawers opening and closing like she was already organizing the space I had not even left yet. There is something else, Daniel continued. Your father included a protective clause tied specifically to the property you are currently residing in. I felt my grip on the phone tighten slightly. What kind of clause? There was a brief pause, not hesitation, but emphasis. Ownership and control of the property were transferred into the trust structure 3 years ago. The residence is not legally held in your stepmother's name. I looked toward the door without meaning to, as if the walls themselves might react to that sentence. It never was, he added. The room felt different suddenly. Not bigger, just clearer. So what does that mean? I asked quietly. It means, he said, his voice still controlled, that any attempt to remove you from that property without your authorization has no legal standing. No legal standing. The words settled slowly, like something locking into place. I thought about the envelope on my desk. The 5 days, the certainty in her voice. And if she tries anyway, I asked, then we respond formally, he said. But based on the timeline your father anticipated, I believe she will contact you first once she realizes there is an issue. I let out a small breath I did not realize I had been holding. Of course she would. That was how this always worked. Control until something pushed back. Then adjustment. Do not sign anything, he continued. Do not agree to anything verbally. If she reaches out, you direct her to us. I nodded, even though he could not see it. Understood. We will prepare everything on our end, he said. You do not need to confront this alone. Alone. That word felt different now, too. I ended the call and lowered the phone slowly. The house was still quiet, but not in the same way it had been before. I stood up and walked to the door, opening it just enough to hear more clearly. Her voice drifted up faintly from downstairs, speaking to someone on the phone, confident, controlled, already explaining a version of events that had not happened yet. I listened for a moment, then I closed the door again. She thought she had already decided how this would end. I looked at the document in my hand one more time. Then, I set it down, calm, precise, final. She was about to learn she never had that power. I did not go back downstairs that night. There was nothing there for me to respond to anymore, not in the way she expected. Instead, I stayed in my room and let the silence settle into something new, not empty, not uncertain, controlled. For years, every decision in that house had been filtered through her voice, her timing, her version of what was allowed. And now, for the first time, I could see the structure behind it. It had never been about ownership. It had been about assumption. I moved slowly, deliberately, pulling a small suitcase from the closet and placing it on the bed. Not because I needed to leave, but because I knew she was watching for it. That was the version of the story she was prepared for. I opened drawers, folded clothes, stacked them neatly inside. Each movement calm, measured, intentional. If she came upstairs, she would see exactly what she expected to see. Compliance, preparation, exit. Around 10 o'clock, I heard her footsteps pause outside my door. Not a knock, just a presence. Listening. Waiting for something. I kept moving, zipping the bag halfway, opening it again, adjusting what did not need adjusting. After a few seconds, the footsteps continued down the hall. I said nothing. The next morning, the house felt different. Not warmer, not colder, just quieter in a way that meant something had shifted beneath the surface. I walked downstairs at exactly 8, the same time I always did, and found her already in the kitchen. Coffee cup in hand, phone on the counter. She looked up briefly, her expression neutral, but her eyes scanning, quickly calculating. You started packing, she said, more statement than question. I nodded once. Yes. She took a sip of her coffee, watching me over the rim of the cup. Good, she said. It will make things easier. Easier. I moved to the sink, rinsing a glass that was already clean. I also need you to sign something before you leave, she added casually, sliding a thin folder toward the edge of the counter. Just standard documentation. It confirms you have no claim to anything here once you are gone. I dried my hands slowly, not looking at the folder right away. There it was. Not just removal, erasure, clean, final. I stepped closer and glanced down at the paper without touching it. Legal language. Structured. Intentional. She had planned this carefully. I will review it, I said. She smiled slightly, but it did not reach her eyes. There is nothing to review. It is straightforward. I met her gaze for the first time since the night before. I still want to review it. A brief pause, just enough for something to flicker behind her expression. Not concern, not yet, but something close to it. She nodded once. Fine. But do not take too long. We both know how this ends. I said nothing. I picked up the folder, feeling the weight of it in my hands. Not heavy, but important. Then I turned and walked back upstairs, steady, quiet, controlled. She thought this was the final step, the signature that would close everything cleanly. I closed the door behind me and set the folder on the desk next to my father's document. 2 paths again, hers and his. I did not hesitate this time. I reached for my phone and sent a single message. I have something she wants me to sign. The reply came almost instantly. Do not sign it. Send it to us. I looked at the folder one more time. Then I understood. This was not the end of anything. This was the moment it began. I did not send the folder immediately. That would have been too fast, too obvious. Instead, I placed it beside my father's document and sat there for a moment looking at both. One built on pressure. One built on protection. The difference was not just legal. It was intentional. I opened the folder again and read every line carefully, slower this time, not as someone being told what to do, but as someone evaluating what was being asked. The language was clean, almost polite on the surface. But underneath it, the structure was clear. It was not just a confirmation of departure, it was a full release. Any claim to the property, any connection to the estate, any right to question past decisions, all of it erased in one signature. I let out a quiet breath. That was the real plan. Not just to remove me, but to make sure I could never come back. Not legally, not financially, not even symbolically. I picked up my phone and took clear photos of every page, front and back, making sure nothing was missed. Then I sent them to Daniel without adding anything else. No explanation, no emotion, just the facts. A few minutes passed. Then my phone buzzed. I opened the message. "Do not engage. We are reviewing now." I set the phone down and closed the folder, placing it neatly back on the desk exactly where it had been. Downstairs, I heard her voice again, sharper this time, speaking to someone else. I could not hear the words clearly, but I could hear the tone. Controlled, but tighter than before. Something was already shifting, even if she did not know why yet. Around noon, she called up the stairs. "Emily." I waited a second before responding. "Yes." "Did you sign it?" I stood up slowly, walking to the door but not opening it. "I am still reviewing it." A pause. Longer this time. "There is nothing to review," she said again, but the confidence was thinner, now stretched just slightly. "It is standard." I rested my hand on the doorknob but did not turn it. "I will let you know." Silence followed. Not the quiet from before. This one carried weight. Calculation. Adjustment. I stepped back from the door and returned to the desk. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a call. "Daniel." I answered immediately. "Emily," he said, his voice steady but more direct than before. "Do not sign anything she gives you. That document is structured to eliminate your legal position entirely, including your authority over the trust property." I nodded. Even though he could not see me. I thought so. "There is more," he continued. "Based on the timing and the language used, it appears she may be preparing to initiate a sale or transfer of the property under the assumption that she has control." I looked toward the window again, the driveway below her car, still parked in the same place. "She does not," I said quietly. "No," he replied, "she does not. But she believes she does. That is what makes this critical." I understood. Completely. This was not just about removing me. It was about securing something before the truth surfaced. "What do I do?" I asked. "Nothing," he said. "Not yet. Let her act. We will respond at the right moment." I closed my eyes for just a second. Let her act. That was the part she would not expect. I ended the call and placed the phone back on the desk. Then I looked at the folder one more time before closing it completely. Downstairs I heard movement again, faster now, less controlled. She was already moving forward. She just did not know she was walking into something she could not undo. By late afternoon, the house no longer felt like it belonged to the same version of the day. The air had shifted, subtle but undeniable, like something just beneath the surface had cracked without making a sound. I stayed upstairs longer than I needed to, not out of hesitation, but because timing mattered now more than anything else. Around 3 o'clock, I heard the front door open and close again, followed by voices I did not recognize. Lower, professional, measured. I walked to the window and looked down at the driveway. A second car was parked behind hers, dark, clean, not a visitor, something else. I said nothing. I just watched. A few minutes later, her voice carried up the stairs louder than before, sharper, performing. "Emily," she called. "We have people here. Come down." I did not respond immediately. I waited just long enough for the tension to stretch, then I stepped out into the hallway and walked downstairs at a steady pace. When I reached the bottom, I saw them. 2 men standing near the dining table, both dressed in neutral tones, folders in hand. Not aggressive, not intrusive, just present. One of them gave a polite nod as I approached. Emily Rebecca said, her tone controlled but edged. Now, these are real estate consultants. We are preparing to move forward with the property, and they need to assess the interior. I looked at the men briefly, then back at her. You are selling the house. It was not a question. She smiled, but it was tight. I am managing what needs to be managed. I let the silence sit for a second. Then I nodded once. I see. One of the men cleared his throat, gently. We will just take a quick look around if that is all right. I did not answer him. I looked at her instead. She was watching me closely now, searching for resistance, for hesitation, for anything she could use to reinforce control. I gave her nothing. I am still reviewing the document, I said calmly. The smile disappeared. Just slightly. That is not relevant to this, she replied quickly. This is separate. Separate? I understood what she was trying to do. Move forward before anything could stop her. Lock in momentum. I nodded again. Understood. Then I stepped aside, allowing the men to move past me without interference. They walked through the house, slowly noting details, measuring spaces, speaking quietly to each other. Rebecca followed closely behind them, her posture straight, her tone confident again as she explained features, upgrades, potential value. I stood near the staircase watching everything unfold, not reacting, not interrupting, just observing. Because this was exactly what Daniel had said would happen. She would act, and when she did, she would expose everything. One of the men paused near the hallway, glancing at a document in his folder. We will need confirmation of ownership documentation before we proceed further, he said casually. It was a standard question. Routine. Expected. But the way her posture shifted just slightly was not. Of course, she said quickly, I have everything. But her voice was not as steady as before. Not quite. I felt something settle into place then. Not victory. Not yet. Just clarity. She had already stepped too far forward, and she did not even realize it. The room stayed quiet for a moment. After that question, the kind of quiet that does not feel empty but heavy, like something is about to shift and everyone can feel it even if they cannot explain why. Rebecca turned slightly, reaching for a folder on the table, her movements smooth but just a fraction too fast. Of course, she repeated, flipping it open and sliding out a set of papers. Everything is documented. She handed them over with a confident smile, the kind she had used for years to close conversations before they could begin. The man took the papers, scanning them briefly, his expression neutral, professional, detached. I watched him closely, not his face, but his eyes. That was where the truth always showed first. He read one page, then another. His posture shifted just slightly. Not dramatic, not obvious, but enough. He glanced at his colleague, then back at the document. This appears to list you as a resident, he said carefully. But not the title holder? The word landed quietly. Title holder. Rebecca's smile did not disappear, but it tightened again, thinner, now stretched across something that was beginning to give way. Yes, she said quickly, the structure is a bit more complex. My late husband handled most of the legal setup. Late husband. My father. I stepped forward, then just one step enough to enter the space of the conversation without interrupting it. That is correct, I said calmly. Both men looked at me. Not surprised, just attentive. And the property is held under a trust, I continued, with full control transferred as of today. Rebecca turned toward me slowly. The look on her face was not anger. Not yet. It was something else. Calculation meeting uncertainty for the first time. Emily, she said, her voice lower, now controlled but edged, this is not the time. I met her gaze evenly. It is exactly the time. I reached into my folder and placed the document on the table, sliding it toward them with the same quiet precision she had used the night before. The man picked it up, scanning quickly, then more carefully, his expression shifting from neutral to focused. This, he said after a moment, changes the position entirely. He looked back at her. We cannot proceed without authorization from the controlling party. Controlling party, the phrase hung in the air, clean, final. I did not say anything else. I did not need to, because for the first time since I walked into that kitchen, the room had reset, not around her, around me. Rebecca stood there silent, now the confidence draining from her posture in small controlled pieces. Not collapsing, not dramatic, just gone. I picked up the unsigned document she had given me earlier and held it for a second before setting it back down. I will not be signing this, I said quietly. No anger, no emphasis, just fact. Then I stepped back, giving the space back to them, but not the control. If you have ever been placed in a position where your voice did not matter until suddenly it did, where everything shifted in a single moment, then you understand exactly what just happened. If you have lived something like this, comment number 1. If you have seen it happen to someone else, comment number 2. And if you never want to find yourself in a situation like this, comment number 3 or share your thoughts below. I looked at her one last time, not with resentment, not even with relief, just clarity. She tried to remove me from a place she believed she owned, but ownership was never about who stood in the kitchen giving orders. It was about who held the truth when everything was finally revealed. And that was never her.